And now to an exclusive. Many parts of America are, of course, closed for this pandemic, from business to sports to even local services like state and local courts. But the Supreme Court is open. It is an essential part of government that confronts issues which will not wait. They rule on whether to spare or greenlight executions, or whether to force the release of Donald Trump's tax returns. The court tackled that very case this week. Or how the Electoral College must function. Or tackling these big Obamacare lawsuits. Or deciding whether key political convictions stand. The court now issuing a huge ruling on that infamous Bridgegate scandal, the payback controversy that exploded inside New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's administration as he was prepping a presidential run. I'm sure you remember the big picture of it. Key officials shut down lanes on the world's busiest bridge, creating not only massive traffic back in 2013, but some risk to the citizens they were supposed to serve. It was a revenge plot to punish a Democrat that Christie was mad at. Now, tonight, we have an exclusive for you on this story, given a set of new court developments in this scandal, which, of course, set off a memorable national furor.
Tonight, how a traffic nightmare on the world's busiest bridge has spiraled into a full-blown scandal with the power to damage Chris Christie's political future.
Now to the growing fallout for New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Tonight, new details about how much his aides knew about that massive traffic jam on the George Washington Bridge.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie right there responding to the bridge scandal rocking his administration, raising questions about the impact on a possible presidential run in 2016.
If the state of New Jersey is being run in such a way that control of interstate assets is being manipulated on purpose to punish specific towns, that is public corruption.
And that alleged public corruption fundamentally altered Christie's political career, and it raised thorny questions of criminal law for that former prosecutor turned governor, like, what did he know? Now, independent prosecutors pounced. Evidence emerged, like an infamous email a month before this all went down by Christie's aide Bridget Kelly saying time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee. Kelly and another top Christie appointee, Bill Baroni, were convicted on fraud and conspiracy charges for the scheme. Now, the saga didn't end there. The appeals wound through the courts, and those former Republican officials took their case all the way to the Supreme Court, which, of course, as you probably know, doesn't hear most cases, but they took it. And that was a sign right there was some sort of legitimate legal debate over these issues. Now, in an era where many political cases are polarized on the court with narrow rulings, you've heard about them, 5-4, we cover them. Here is the big news. The Supreme Court came together with a unanimous ruling, 9-0. Did they uphold the tough approach to that payback scandal that was committed basically in broad daylight? No. The court just ruling the prosecutors went too far because Kelly and Baroni did not commit actual crimes involving money or property to support those charges of property fraud. That was a big legal victory in development. Obama appointed Justice Elena Kagan writing, federal fraud statutes do not criminalize the conduct at issue. This is a big case. It has so many implications. And joining us now for an exclusive interview is former New Jersey Senator and Deputy Executive Director of the Port Authority, the man who went to prison for his role in this Bridgegate scandal, Bill Baroni. Thank you for coming on the beat to really break your silence, sir.
Hey, Ari, how are you?
I'm all right. I know that there's a lot to talk about, including your time in prison and the policy ideas you have. So I want to get to that. But this is the news. This is a big news story. What does this new ruling mean to you?
Well, I think, as you just mentioned, Ari, it is historic to have, at a time of great polarization on the Supreme Court, both the liberal wing of the court and the conservative wing of the court issue a unanimous decision. That's historic. But for me and my family and friends, this has been a 7-year saga of an investigation, an indictment, a trial, an appeal, going into prison, coming out of prison, and going and winning in the Supreme Court. So this has been a long road that I've been on for 7 years, leading up to the decision last week by the court.
You know, Governor Christie famously denied any role in all this. Let's remind everyone, take a look.
I had no knowledge or involvement in this issue, in its planning or its execution, and I am stunned by the abject stupidity that was shown here. I have 65,000 people working for me every day. And I cannot know what each one of them is doing at every minute. But that doesn't matter. I'm ultimately responsible for what they do.
Was his claim and denial true? And does Chris Christie, in your view, bear responsibility for what was done?
Well, Ari, as the one person who went to prison for Bridgegate, I think I'll let others come to their own conclusions about the governor's statements.
Well, Bridget Kelly, who also paid a price, we mentioned, she's publicly insisted Christie knew about the lane closings as they happened. Is she telling the truth, do you think?
Well, I think if you saw during the trial, there were a number of witnesses who testified about the governor's knowledge at various times of the bridge closure. And Bridget obviously is someone who's gone through this with me, and we lived through that 2-month-long trial, and it's been a difficult time.
So you don't have any reason to doubt what she asserts?
No, a number of people, Bridget, myself, and a number of other witnesses all testified that the governor knew during the closures.
So for people watching, here you are, you went to jail for this. Now the Supreme Court overturns it. Should there be, in your view, any larger reckoning for Chris Christie based on what you just said?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not so much focused on Governor Christie. I haven't spoken to him in more than 7 years. What I'm focused on is what I learned in the time that I had to go to prison. I didn't wake up one morning and look forward to it, but I prepared as much as I could. And I spent time in Loretto Federal Prison because for me, I never dreamed the Supreme Court of the United States would take this case. Ari, the percentage chances of that are very, very small. And I have older parents. I made the decision to go in and get it over with. So early in 2019, I went into Loretto Prison, and my focus since then, and when I got out, when the Supreme Court took the case, and up until earlier this afternoon, helping people who are in the prison system, especially now during the coronavirus crisis that we have in all of our prisons across the country.
And let's get to that because that's something we've covered a lot, and I want to get into that. I have one more piece of Chris Christie business, one more soundbite for you, and then I'll move past that. But I did want to, again, for the record, given everything that's gone on, you understand the public interest in this and now the court ruling. Governor Christie explicitly cited you when saying that another staffer, Wildstein, did this with your approval. Want to give you the benefit of responding in public now that you're breaking your silence. Here's what Chris Christie said.
Who initiated this? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, listen, up to this point in time, up to the emails were released yesterday, it was Senator Baroni's testimony that Mr. Wildstein initiated it at his approval, with his approval.
Is that true?
Ari, I think it came across very clearly that, Governor Christie's view of what happened, our case played itself out in the courtroom. David Wildstein, prosecutors have all said that, came up with this idea. And, 7 years later, I had to go to the Supreme Court to get those convictions overturned.
And I want to read from the court opinion again, because it is striking. As mentioned, it's 9-0, and it says very clearly that you and these other individuals, as reported, did not commit a crime. I mean, that's important for the public record, and we certainly have covered that story. They also say, and I want to get your response to this because it's the first time you're speaking, that you basically, for no other reason than political payback, Baroni and Kelly used deception to halt traffic and jeopardize the safety of the town's residents. Do you take responsibility for that and say, okay, it was not a crime, but it was wrong?
Well, I've said on a number of occasions that I wish I had paid more attention to the information I was being given. And I have regretted this for 7 years. It's what led me to go to prison. And while it's not criminal, certainly what I've been trying to do is to make up for those mistakes and helping other people who need help right now. And that's what I've been focused on.
Yeah. So let's get into that as promised. I did have some news items there I wanted to walk through, but tell us what it was like for you when you did go into prison here, what you learned and what you say you want to do now on policy and trying to be constructive with the rest of the time you have, obviously.
Well, I had prepared a lot to go into federal prison. It was a difficult time. I was in Loretto Federal Prison, which has about 1,000 prisoners. I was in the camp. But one of the things I learned was preparing to go in is really important. So what I am doing now is helping people who are getting ready to go into prison and helping people who are coming out of prison, especially now with coronavirus and what prisoners are facing. You know, all the things, Ari, that you and I are able to do on the outside world. Socially distance, you can't do that in prison. You know, wash your hands often. Sometimes they don't even have any soap. Wear a mask. Sometimes they don't have masks. And even get tested. You know, we're seeing all across the country prisons and at both the state and federal level unable to provide tests for people there in the prisons. In one prison, we saw it yesterday, 75% of prisoners tested positive for coronavirus. Already there's been, I think, around 2,300 people have tested positive in our prisons. 52 have died, including one last night. A 65-year-old man in California had a 33-month sentence, and he died of coronavirus. And when we're sending people to prison for 33 months, that becomes a death penalty. And to me, that is cruel and unusual punishment. And so I've been doing everything I can.
Yeah, no, and I was going to ask you on the follow, and I appreciate that because that's something we, as you know, we report on here, and it's an important story. What do you say to the skeptics who look at some of these efforts and say, wait a minute, where was the concern from, say, a Governor Blagojevich or Republican officials before they got in trouble? That there seems to be a kind of selective awakening on this. That is, as I think you know, a public criticism out there. I want to give you the benefit of responding to it.
Well, again, I'm not sure about the criticism, but I do think it is all of our responsibility, you know, to, at this moment in crisis, we look at people who are really suffering. And there's a group that can't help themselves. And we've built this strange system where if you are sick in prison or you're older, you need to apply to get a compassionate release, but you have to wait 30 days. And then you've got to get a lawyer, if you can afford a lawyer, to be able to go to the sentencing judge who sent you to prison, who may not be in the same state as you are, and hope that the sentencing judge lets you out. To me, that is already taking a two-tier justice system and making it even worse. Because if you can afford a lawyer to go into court for you, maybe you've got a chance to get out. If you can't, well, you're going to stay there. To me, that's not a system, Ari, that's working. And I think it's incumbent on all of us. Now, I have, you know, the experience of having been in prison. I know what it's like that you can't be 6 feet apart, where your bunks are 2 feet apart from each other. I learned some people who are sick in prison. And I think it's all of our responsibilities. And I know you've been talking about it for a long time. All of our responsibilities to do something about it.
Yeah. And as you just mentioned, this is something we touched on. We've been talking about racial disparities on the broadcast. You just summarized it as an attorney and a policymaker yourself. Things that are even allegedly, supposedly about humanitarian concerns or compassion still require money. So poor people aren't going to be able to avail themselves of that, while people with the money to fund lawyers do. And that's, as you said, two-tiered. It's a real problem. It's something we've shown a light on. Bill Baroni, you are an interview subject in demand with everything you've been through and that big Supreme Court ruling. I really appreciate you coming on the beat tonight. I hope you come back, sir.
Thanks, Ari. Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.